Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. John Pollock, Wai Ting with you on Wednesday, January the 17th. Hello, Wai.
How you doing, John?
I'm very tired. I am exceptionally tired today. A long day.
Long day, yeah.
How about you? You full of energy? You excited?
No, I wish I was, but no. I'm a bit tired too. I'm sorry. I don't know if we should
Everyone sit back. It's going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Get ready for this one.
Yeah, I don't know how often people really want to hear that, their podcast hosts aren't feeling that energetic. But it's the truth,
I can't lie. I can't lie to the people out there. Well, we are going to get into everything concerning tonight's AEW Dynamite from North Charleston, South Carolina. Ever been?
I have not. No. Have you?
Have not. No. On my list.
Okay. All right.
Big fan of the Charlestons.
What's that? The dance?
This is North Charleston. I'm just saying in general.
Okay. All right.
Let's move on quickly.
I got nothing, dude. I mean, I know you're trying to cook something up. There's just really not much here.
Okay. Well, I just wanted a recap of just life in general, how you're doing.
I went to the aquarium today.
Oh, the aquarium
with Oscar, yeah, and had a great time.
Have you been to the aquarium before?
Never. No.
It's fun to go to. It's entertaining. It's a good walkthrough. I think it keeps your attention as well.
Yeah, it's a bit smaller than, I mean, it's huge, but I guess a bit smaller than I had envisioned, but it is like a self-contained, thing in the heart of the city, and I guess impressive enough. But taking a 1.5-year-old there, it was fun to watch his reactions to everything, but he was also as interested in the sort of that little path, that tram that they have.
Oh,
that
yeah,
takes you through the tunnel.
The one that moves.
Yeah, he was as interested at the platform as the actual, fish and everything.
Yeah.
But
I mean that holds. I mean, how could that compare to some dude that's in there swimming with these, piranhas?
Yeah. And then while walking outside, I ran into a stray Davey Portman.
Oh, wow.
What are the chances?
Probably decent chances, I would say, not a 1 in a million chance, but yeah, it's a
pretty big city, John.
It's it feels like it. I thought you were gonna say you ran into, I don't know, Daniel Cormier or something.
Well, that would be a bit more unusual.
He was a few blocks over where I was.
Right. Yes. How was your day?
Oh, we'll get into that. We'll get into UFC Media Day. That's where I was most of the day. Different setup than now. The way they do Media Day is that you arrive, and instead of it being a free-for-all where everyone's just going to try and interview people, everyone's at desks. They bring people in for their different 15 minutes, and everyone that gets a question, pretty much they have a chance to get it in, unless it's you have to be aggressive at the end because they'll keep it to a certain amount of time. It's pretty organized. It's pretty simple. It's one where to be there in person, unless you're shooting the video, I guess, for your website. I don't know if it's mandatory that you be there in person when all of this is going to be streamed and they send you the audio after, but it gives you a chance to ask a bunch of questions, which I got to do. So there was that aspect to it, but it was fine. Got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in quite a while on the MMA media front. There was Daniel Cormier was in fact there hanging out. A lot of people were hanging out. Fighters, coaches, media.
Exciting. You feel a good buzz about this UFC in Toronto?
I don't think this is going to be a card that does anything significant on pay-per-view, but it's going to be sold out on Saturday night. and these ticket prices are enormous. The cheapest ticket to get in is about $500 for this event. It's significantly high prices, and like the live event business for UFC is red hot. They go anywhere. They did a just typical fight night event back in November that did a $2.2 million gate just for a fight night card in Austin, Texas. Like that just tells you the demand is so high at the moment to see UFC. And I think this would be, there are a bunch of Canadians on the show, but I wouldn't say like kind of the leading kind of Canadian fighter on the main card is a guy by the name of Mike Malott, who is in a big fight with Neal Magny. But overall, I mean, it's not like we are at a level where it's like these game-changing figures in Canadian MMA that have crossed over to that big kind of coverage that would warrant, you know, people turning them into stars. I don't think they're quite there yet. But overall, it's been over 5 years since UFC has run here in Toronto. So alone you have demand. But Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis is the main event. We will probably get into that as well. And yeah, some last minute attention that Sean Strickland is probably going to have upon himself. And maybe that is as good a segue as any, because as I mentioned, these were all broken up into each fighter got their time in front of the media. So come 2:00, I had to get going because I had to get home to do the show with Brandon. So who did I miss? Well, I missed Sean Strickland, the UFC middleweight champion, who came and sat in front of the media and took questions. And I mean, how familiar are you with Sean Strickland? Way, is he kind of off your radar?
Kind of, yeah. I think I saw something where somebody interviewed him, uh, and it was just a
Theo Vaughn, maybe?
no, it was a woman who interviewed
Oh.
him, and it was like a clip about something kind of obscene, and then the female reporter said that they were just joking, and she didn't take offense to it.
Okay. You might be mistaking this for somebody else, I think.
Who am I thinking of?
Are you thinking of Tom Aspinall? British
Maybe.
fighter? Okay. Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about, and
Okay.
I'm not going to repeat it, but it's
Okay, I
yeah,
apologize.
yeah, there's plenty of it. Not to say Sean Strickland is a saint by any stretch. So Sean Strickland is somebody that, I mean, he's been in the UFC for almost a decade at this point. Like he has carved into this sort of brash, outspoken figure that comes across pretty genuine to people. And in time, like he has been open about the fact, like he had a traumatizing childhood where he was like physically beaten by his father. I mean, it's like just the description of it. Like this is a childhood that no individual should have to live through. And I think that has given people some context into how this guy has gotten to this kind of state of mind. But he has said some horrific things in the past, and it's somewhat measured of, like in mixed martial arts, I think there's a grand amount of leeway that is given to fight promotion to say shocking things, because more often than not, this kind of thing works for people and it gets them attention. And I think there's no question that if we're looking at the worlds of pro wrestling and MMA has a far greater rope that they're willing to give of insane things to be said, all in for the sake of fight hype. But I mean, in the past, like there have been things he has said in terms of like homophobic comments, you know, just tons of things. And he's leaned into this, and it's very much part of him. And he is a popular fighter because of this to a lot of people. And you've seen since winning the middleweight title, like they have really tried to humanize this guy as well. So it's not like this is a complicated figure when it comes to that. But today he was in front of the media, and one of the reporters, Alexander Lee, who was with MMA Fighting, brought up some of these past comments for him to essentially explain, to just basically address these comments that he has put out in the past. So we're going, I kind of debated if I want to play this or not. There is some horrible language in this, like some very hateful language in this, but I think it's more impactful that you actually hear it from him rather than me trying to recap it. I think it is important to hear it and the context as well. So this is about a 3-minute clip. So we are going to play it, and then I would like Wai's reaction as well, as someone that maybe doesn't really follow as much of the day-to-day with someone like a Sean Strickland, and we'll go from there. So here is Sean Strickland at the media day earlier today in Toronto.
We've got a pretty supportive gay and lesbian community in this city. I did want to ask you about something you wrote a couple of years ago. You said, if I had a gay son, I would think I'd...
Oh, look, another, I'm saying to you, the swamp, you guys, the swamp.
You become a champion, you become a star, and someone says...
Let me ask you something. Are you gay?
Have you had the chance to interact with a more diverse...
Let me know, are you gay?
Can I get an answer?
Well, no, I'm asking, this is a part of, are you a gay man?
I'm an ally of the community.
Okay. If you had a son and he was like, you had a son, he was gay, you'd be like, oh man, you don't want a grandkid?
No problem with it.
Oh man, well, dude, you're a weak fucking man, dude. You're part of the fucking problem. You elected Justin Trudeau. Like, when he sees the bank accounts, like, you're just fucking pathetic. And the fact that you have no fucking backbone, and has he shut down your fucking country and seized bank accounts? You ask me some stupid shit like that, go fuck yourself. Move the fuck on, man.
That doesn't really answer the question, but I did want to ask also things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me when they know what, and will know what they stand for.
This guy's like, hey, this Canadian's not that Canadian.
Are you still going to use your fight time to kind of speak on that?
Here's the thing about Bud Light. 10 years ago, to be trans was a mental fucking illness. And now all of a sudden, people like you have fucking weaseled your way into the world. You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of fucking you. And the best thing is the world's not buying it. The world's not buying your fucking bullshit you're fucking peddling. The world is not saying, you know what? You're right. Fucking chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could fuck in school. I don't want my kids being taught about, their sexual preference. Like, dude, this guy is the fucking enemy. You want to look at the fucking enemy to our world? It's that motherfucker right there, asking these stupid fucking questions. Sorry, I told the UFC I was being nicer. Lance, am I still good with this? Did I cross any lines? A little. What the fuck? I didn't say the F word. You just brought this fucking guy in here to piss me off.
You just did, but just to follow up, I mean, Rick.
Did I say it?
You just did.
No, I didn't say it.
Right there, you did.
Different F word, different word. Yeah. I'm trying to be good, man. I'm trying to be good. I like the fucking gays. Here's the thing. I've never, you guys think I've ever shit on a gay man or shit on a gay woman? I like the gays. It's fucking freedom. We still have it in America. We'll teach you about it. You guys don't have fucking freedom of speech. I'm surprised what I'm saying is probably gonna get I'm probably gonna get the fucking Canadian government to arrest me. So I don't give a fuck who you fuck. I don't give a fuck what you want to do in life. But don't fucking tell kids about it. Don't teach that shit in fucking school. Don't fucking push your agenda. Don't try to fucking brainwash people. Don't try to go past parents. Don't try to go up past all this shit and brainwash people, you fucking cuck.
That was Sean Strickland at today's media day. Had you heard this clip already today?
I saw I didn't see all of it, but I saw a portion of it when you tweeted it out. I guess it's somewhat fitting, or maybe interesting at least, that we're talking about this and we're listening to a clip like this on the anniversary of the death of Jay Briscoe, somebody who had made similar comments in the past, and I think from what we've known has walked back on them and has sort of used it as a growing experience to change. I hear this from this man who's a very successful MMA fighter, and I can't help but just maybe feel like I'm listening to the ramblings of a very dumb person, somebody who maybe is just miseducated, himself, and probably has suffered. You mentioned he has suffered a lot of hurt
like
himself. So I approach it maybe from like a bit more of a sympathetic sort of like tone. But it's shocking. And I would say even more shocking than just, hearing somebody at the very top of this promotion, his name is on the background of this event.
this
That
guy
we're
is the
seeing here.
headline. This guy is by far the biggest star on this card on Saturday. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no question about it. And I
But
mean,
but even beyond just, I think, hearing essentially a spokesperson for this company use this type of speech, it's the comments and the responses, to your tweets, to this tweet, and the amount of defenders that are out there just championing these words, using him as, proud spokesperson. And I mean, I used to love MMA. I used to love the UFC. I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. It's a beautiful sport. But I never, ever, ever want to be associated with people that feel this way, and people that would look to like somebody like this as, a role model for them. It just completely turns me off of anything MMA.
I think that is the part of it, is that you see not even so much a defense of the person of trying to like of someone that is a fan of Sean Strickland that tries to defend this. No, it is they are defending the philosophy. They are defending these thoughts that are it's troubling to me, but not surprising at the same level. I just contrast to the two industries that we cover the most, and it seems like there is a outlet for it in one, and almost like a zero tolerance. Like, could you fathom way a pro wrestler in a setting like this, in a major company like even coming within a tenth of that kind of language in a public setting, that there wouldn't be such a grand outcry, and that there would be parameters in place that would like it just becomes a situation where the UFC has kind of opened itself, where an individual like this is not only free to espouse this, but do it on company turf at a promotional event. This is where like the UFC has kind of marked their line in the sand, that we are the freedom of speech company and you can say whatever you want. This being the same company that at a time had a like disciplinary committee in place, and when Nate Diaz just used the F word on Twitter was fined, and how far we have come now to this, where I don't think without any pressure there would be even a thought of, even at the very least, of UFC stating we do not condone this, even though they readily promote like pride and certain initiatives like that. But then when you have someone like this that is essentially speaking on behalf of your company, you are endorsing this by default. And how do you feel if you are
You're platforming him?
You are. And the only way that there's a reaction is if those business partners, whether they be sponsors or broadcasters, are uncomfortable with this. Like, remember, we have just kicked off the Sportsnet deal in Canada as of last weekend. And this is a company in Rogers that a number of years ago fired Don Cherry, who is one of the most iconic broadcasters in this country, after he, granted had a history of, troubling remarks that sort of just got accepted as part of Don Cherry, but went a step too far. And his rant was complaining about calling you people, as sort of people took as a euphemism for immigrants, not wearing poppies. And that was it. He was fired over that. Does an ESPN want to be associating with this? And I guess by this point, ESPN has been in the UFC business for many years at this point. But this is like, for Rogers, they are back in the UFC business after years apart. This is a very different UFC, and it comes with this kind of thing that did not exist there, back in 2014 and before.
Right. Yeah. I guess The pessimist in me just doesn't feel like anybody will be complaining because maybe the money is too good. The UFC is maybe too important to their portfolio, and business dealings are probably so much bigger than what they see this as. I yeah, it is interesting how, like, I think in this forum, I
Like what
feel
would
like
have
this
happened
is
way if this had happened at the press conference and they're running it on Sportsnet, or he says this on breakfast television? Like, what is the difference there? Instead of this being a media event that was limited to like live streaming
Mhm.
online. I mean, this is I'm just curious. Like, I know that Outsports wrote an article about this after it happened. Like, this is like in any, it blows my mind that in any other athlete in a sport goes on some rant like this. I mean, this would be like gigantic reaction from the leagues, from players,
Mhm.
from fans. And in MMA, it's like this alcove of sports that can exist, and this is considered freedom of speech and don't police language.
So would you say this is something that would have been permissible in other MMA promotions, or is it something specifically that you think the UFC has sort of made I don't know, a sort of open forum for?
Um, I think I mean, listen, there's certainly you can
Like, is it an
find.
MMA problem or is it a UFC problem? Is what I'm
I'd
trying to
say
ask.
more UFC, but there is like certainly I think you look at combat sports as a whole, I think there is a greater level of this kind of thing that is going to exist. Like look at the lead up to like Mayweather McGregor. I mean, there was some horrible things that were used. I mean, racism has been a backbone of fight promotion going back generations. I mean, there is that ugly side of these sports. But I would say in current modern day, I think the UFC, they have very much wrapped themselves around
This
this.
isn't building up any fight though. This is just a guy spewing hate,
I
you
would
know?
argue that if you were somebody, I would imagine that there would be some people that maybe would not feel comfortable about buying a pay-per-view that that directly goes to this guy who has points in a pay-per-view that you would be
Yeah.
essentially
But, you know,
supporting.
as many people as that might be uncomfortable, there might be 10 more people that are going to be celebrating something like this. The fact
Oh,
that
and
somebody
he
is
will he
finally.
will be cheered going into Saturday. He will be
Mhm.
the baby face in that arena. I don't have a doubt about that.
You think so? Even in Toronto?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me. I mean, hey, enjoy. I'm not watching this stuff anyway. Like, for people that are watching it and celebrating something like this, good for you. You know, you enjoy these events. I guess I'm just a bit sad that a sport that I used to love so much has been basically sort of I don't know, taken over by people that I would never want to, associate with.
Well, if you want more context, I implore people to go find this clip and then read the comments because they're, I would say, enlightening, but I mean the exact opposite of that definition.
I mean, this is relevant because this is a brother promotion to the WWE at the moment, and mm, yeah, in terms of like policy, in terms of I think how much one might cross over to the other, I feel like you know the press con, like, what would an Ari Emanuel have to say about maybe when pressed about something like this, and
He's
in
not
the same.
pressed about stuff like this.
Right. I mean, and I mean in the same breath as, like, him having to talk about the WWE. These are very much the same companies now, and so how philosophically different will they be managed? What sort of I don't know, moral grounds or is each company going to be held to differently?
How about this one? If you were a WWE wrestler and let's just say you put out some, some ill-advised tweet, okay, and you say something that causes that backlash, how in the world could you come down on someone like that and use
Right.
the comparable of, are we not all in the same company and I just saw this on the other side of the
Well,
fence?
this is
And
a company that I mean has hired Hulk Hogan and is led by Vince McMahon. So there are probably enough like examples within their own the WWE itself that they could cite.
but there was action taken against Hulk Hogan. Like at the very core, it would not be a case of Hulk Hogan uttering this, and just he continues on tough enough. He's free to say whatever he wants. We don't police language around here.
What if Hulk Hogan was a main event at WrestleMania though? I feel like he would have gotten away with it, like, okay, maybe not what he said.
I don't know, man.
Not what Hogan said himself. But man, like when you're in a power position in these companies, people get away with a whole lot. And
I'll tell you one thing that is a big difference though. And I don't mean to categorize everyone because I'm not, but there was enough of this today that was like fresh in my mind, is that when all the Hulk Hogan stuff came, and in the years that have come, certainly there are fans that are still fans of Hulk Hogan. He is a childhood figure to him. They are willing to overlook that tape, that language, or even go so far as to come up with reasons. He was going through a difficult time, but I certainly did not see a whole ton of people that were coming out and defending the language that Hulk Hogan was using, and that what he was espousing was somehow of value to society. Like I was seeing today of, Sean, tell them. There was a lot of that today that I saw out of that. And it was the language and the philosophy behind it that was being defended even more so than the human that was spewing it.
Yeah. I mean, the comments and sort of like the high fives are almost more shocking to me than the comments themselves. But all right,
that was UFC 297 Media Day. We'll see. There's a press conference tomorrow. We will see what's going to happen. If I had kept that clip running, we would have got Sean Strickland's thoughts on women fighting in mixed martial arts. In another world, that would have been the most offensive thing that you would have heard. Doesn't even come close to.
Should we give microphones to idiots? He
got 26 minutes of them. I
guess people could argue that this is an example of that too. With us.
Well, I think that it is still important to point these things out and not just let them become part of the norm. That listen to him. But nonetheless, let's move on. I just want to go through the numbers because we went long on this topic, and then we will get into Dynamite. But a bunch of ratings coming in, going all the way back to Friday's SmackDown, which did 2,465,000 viewers and a 0.64 in the demo. So they were down 3% and 5% respectively in those numbers. Rampage had 396,000 and a 0.12 in the demo. So a 16% drop in the demo, but audience was relatively the same. And we'll get into Rampage. They are at least continuing this week to beef it up with several stars booked for this Friday show. Collision on Saturday night was going against the 23 million viewer NFL wildcard game on Peacock, but Collision managed to do 400,000 viewers, pretty much even from the week prior, but did fall 22% in the 18-49 demo. So that was the first 2 hours of their Saturday night block. And then Battle of the Belts falling to 351,000 and a 0.09 in the demo. So this was their second lowest audience ever for a Battle of the Belts, and the lowest 18-49 audience for a Battle of the Belts. And I think it's just simply, yes, you were going up against the NFL, but number two, I just think like these 3-hour shows, it's a big slog to go through these on a Saturday night, even one that had a fairly built up match with the street fight. It was interesting just today as we were on the show going through the history of the Battle of the Belts numbers and what that first show did. Like there was such a hunger for more AEW at that time, and that was January of 2022. So we're talking 2 years ago. And I mean, over time,
also the expectation that I think what you're going to see on these specials was going to be of relevance, or significant relevance, I should say. To this day, we still have only had, I believe, two title changes, technically, both to Sammy Guevara. So I think people at this point have more than caught on that these are shows that you don't have to watch.
The house always wins. That should be the name. They love their casino metaphors. So that could be the name of these shows. And the most interesting number was Raw on Monday night going against the NFL football game, which across ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2 did over 29 million viewers and over a 7 rating in the 18-49 demo. Raw did 1,419,000 viewers and a 0.45. So they were down only 3% in viewership. They were up 2% in the demo this week, which is extraordinary. It was not as though they had a crazy drop off. and it seemed like they maintained very well week over week. And if you look at the quarter hours, it was kind of like bouncing up and down throughout the show. And the end was Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal doing 1,310,000 viewers as the average, according to WrestleNomics. I thought this was like a terrific number for what would probably be the toughest Monday of the entire year. And now they're off to the races. There's no more football as of this Monday throughout until the fall. So they're in really good shape coming out of this football season and held up very well against not just the football game, but you had the Iowa caucus results coming in, to a lesser extent, the Emmy Awards. It was a really packed Monday night, and Raw definitely held its own.
And how much credit do you give that to Seth and Jinder?
I mean, it
Their
did a
quarter hour wasn't significantly more than
it was typical. It was like typical of a Raw main event. So I can't say it did a whole lot, but I think starting off the show with Cody and Drew was probably a strong move. They did very well in the first hour. They got up to, they were over 1.5 million for several of these quarters. I don't know what the attachment was. I wouldn't discount a title match being there as some kind of hook for throughout the show, but I think overall it's just there's some momentum with Raw at the moment where they didn't need to hotshot something. There's some investment in the stories that are going on, even on a show that lacked a CM Punk, for instance, which it should be ample interest for next Monday's show when they don't have to contend with football. So that is the ratings notes, and all your other news can be found at postwrestling.com. We also have today's Pollock and Thurston show up, where we discuss further the Vince McMahon Netflix documentary series, Peacock having a giant weekend with the NFL playoff game, and joined by Josh Nason from the Wrestling Observer site to go over many, many topics, including TV rights, TNA, all of that great stuff. So you can catch Pollock and Thurston. And then on Thursday, Wai and I are back to talk. We will be well rested to go for volume 12 of Talk, where we will go into, well, who knows? We have no format. We go in and we just we turn the mics on and magic ensues.
Let's see what comes out.
All right, that is it. And now we are going to move on over to AEW Dynamite tonight from North Charleston, South Carolina. We got some videos at the beginning and Samoa Joe and Hook entering the building and promoting that tonight's main event will be commercial free. And Tony Schiavone is sick, and in to replace him is Ian Riccaboni. So get well soon, Tony Schiavone. Starting things off, it is Christian Cage and Dustin Rhodes for the TNT Championship with Nick Wayne and Killshot in the corner. Shayna Wayne was not there.
No, she was not. I mean,
was Davey Portman in the midst of mailing a trophy out when you saw him today that he handed to her?
No,
okay.
No, I don't believe so. No.
Cage tries to crotch Rhodes around the post, but Rhodes stops him and posts Cage. They go through the picture-in-picture, and Cage misses with a headbutt off the top, and then Cage is catapulted into the corner, and Rhodes goes for Shattered Dreams, but Cage kicks him away. Rhodes hits a Destroyer, and then goes for the suicide dive and gets stopped by this strike, and Cage hits a frog splash, only gets a 2 count, so Cage gets the belt, and Edwards takes it away as Rhodes gets an inside cradle, but with Aubrey's back turned, Nick Wayne runs in and turns him over. Cage is then placed in the corner, lands the Shattered Dreams, and then Dustin hits a superplex and follows it with the Crossroads for a major near fall, and the crowd was just cooking at this point. They go to the floor, Killshot gets kicked low by Dustin, and then he hits a Destroyer on the floor. And Rhodes runs into the corner, misses Cage, and Cage comes back with the spear and follows with the kill switch. Everyone thinks it's over, but Dustin kicks out, and Cage has to hit a second kill switch, which keeps Dustin down in 15 minutes and 25 seconds. Really hot match from this crowd, and just at the level I was expecting from these two, and they got a lot of time on top of it.
Me too. This was, I think, the type of match that I hope garnered a lot of attention in the back from younger members of the roster, because I felt it was one of the few instances in AEW where you got to see two veterans north of 50, but still in fantastic physical shape, be able to, show off not just I think their physical abilities, but their sort of like sharp instincts and veteran sense in how to put together a match that was ultimately like very textbook, really textbook heel babyface things employed here, and everything worked flawlessly with this crowd. So, they both, I would still say, like have enough spectacular offense in their movesets, especially Dustin with those destroyers that, makes this match feel like it fits an AEW Dynamite style. But man, at its heart, it was just, I think, a really good traditional wrestling match.
Yeah, two veterans of Breakdown 1998.
That is correct. One person making his debut even. Yes.
Who is this young man?
Yeah, exactly.
How much better did Dustin look in 2024 versus 26 years ago?
No comparison. Are you kidding me?
It was a brutal match with Val Venus. But,
oh, God.
He was matched with a superior Canadian here.
Jeez,
So,
that is so true. Like, I mean, the wrestling, these two are way better here than they were in 98.
Well, we can only judge Christian looking very gothic and walking to around the ringside area.
But we remember some of those matches, like, okay, before the TLC era, like, I mean, they weren't really it wasn't demanded of them to have a match like this. Yeah.
Renee is in the back with Swerve Strickland, and he says he's got his eyes everywhere. He's watching the main event tonight, is laser focused on the AEW title, didn't win the Continental Classic, but he's the one everyone's talking about. And then says Hangman Page, he's an impeccable performer. And when he was a champion, he was a great champion, lists off the major wins, but he can't beat me. And I have nothing to prove by beating him again. Not a whole lot to argue with there. If I was 2-0 over somebody in that fashion, I'd be like, yeah, get to the back of the line. How many times do I have to beat you here? This is like Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. It's like, listen, rivalry's over.
Pretty much, yeah. So, I mean, I guess we'll have to see what Hangman didn't really make a strong argument about wanting a rematch either. So, I don't know if they're actually going there or another direction. Felt like a bit of a babyface promo from Swerve here. Like, got cheered by this audience. He's sporting this like sort of mascara, dark makeup, eyeshadow look. Like,
you liked it?
Like, yeah, sure, why not? He's always been like, a bit of a horror character anyway, right? So it looks good.
Okay, well, there's your fashion moment with Wai Ting. They recap the street fight at Battle of the Belts 9, and we go to Renee with Chris Jericho backstage. And they note that Sammy Guevara is not here tonight. He is injured from the street fight, but Jericho is still standing. And he blames the Don Callis family for losing. He is going to seek and destroy Takeshita's ass. And then in walks Matt Sydal, who says he knows Jericho better and says you need to get back into the ring with someone who's beaten you. And everyone went to cage match with good intentions and realized, oh yeah, 2010. Yeah, you beat this guy. So Jericho responds, clearly a memorable opponent in his past. Okay, Sydal, and makes the challenge for Rampage. Matt Sydal.
He did joke that he was born to do this. So I think he was more familiar with his other name. Anything to build to a match, I suppose, Include like I at some point, like
Jericho's going to the locker room. Who's beaten me in the past? Like a long time ago.
I mean, I could just see Tony seeing like who's available and who's going to drop to Jericho on Rampage this week. Sydal. What possible history do these two have together? Let's just Google Matt Sydal and Chris Jericho and see what comes up, and boom, got our story. Why not? Were you surprised to see Chris Jericho on the show? We had suspected that maybe he would have taken time off after that street fight on Saturday, and it seems like he's just kind of right back into it.
No, if you were going to tell me someone's going to be off injured to sell the effects of Saturday, I think people would have assumed Jericho instead. I think it's the opposite. I think they are just ripping the Band-Aid off, and we're just going to throw him out there week after week. And this, I assume that this aired live in the arena, and I did not detect any boos for this promo. And I would think like that's probably a signal like that this match will probably have a regular reaction to it. And I think they're just going to continue forward and hope that the booing dies out.
Yeah, well, I think even on Saturday, you didn't really hear it, and it's a question of whether or not, if the match had started in the arena, you would have heard them, but I don't really even think so. Like, even last Wednesday, even if the music was in there, I don't think you would have necessarily heard it, so they probably feel confident enough that the storm has passed, I suppose, and, mm, people aren't necessarily going to question or, just, I guess, give that reaction to Jericho. But I mean, Rampage is a tape show, so I guess there's always the possibility of sweetening. But whatever. It's just it's a story I don't even really know how to talk about anymore.
Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta against Penta and Komander was next. They go through the picture-in-picture. This is the first time they noted that Orange Cassidy and Trent have teamed up together. And Penta is in with Orange Cassidy and lands a pair of sling blades. Komander dives onto Trent on the floor, and then we get a Made in Japan onto Orange Cassidy for a 2 count. They try for the fear factor, but Trent knocks Komander off balance off the top, and then Penta comes off the back of Komander into a destroyer on Trent. Komander then lands the splash coming off the shoulders of Penta. Cassidy's in for the save, and then after Komander misses the Phoenix splash, Trent connects with a flying knee. And as Cassidy moves Trent out of the way, he catches Penta with the beach break and follows with an orange punch to Komander, and Trent lands the Dude Buster, pinning Komander in 10 minutes and 16 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Good match, yeah. I mean, exactly as what you would expect. I mean, all 4 men are completely excellent here. Komander and Penta have seemingly, I mean, I don't know what you would expect, but like they are a great team already. And Trent was great here as well. So go watch this match. It was a lot of fun.
The post-match, they go to hug, but they are interrupted by the Undisputed Kingdom, who surround the ring before entering. And Strong tells Orange Cassidy, "You're a fighting champion, but you didn't defend it tonight." And he said, "Your asks are becoming a bit too much," and he's coming for the title. So Cassidy just agrees on the spot. "We can do it right now," and the crowd gets excited. But Roderick Strong, the challenger, turns it down. Says, "No, the old I'll challenge for the title on my timeline." So instead of tonight, we're gonna do this match in 6.5 weeks at Revolution on March the 3rd. I was like, "Are you kidding me? We're going to wait till the pay-per-view for this." And Strong said, "You're going to have to live with that fact for the next 6 weeks, and you're just keeping the title warm for me."
Yeah. That's a long time, man.
Dude, it's a
And
really long time.
and for somebody like Orange Cassidy who you expect almost like a weekly defense at times, throughout his run. Are they suggesting that we're not going to get that any defenses until then? And even if we do, doesn't it kind of kill any sort of hope of a title changing between now and Revolution?
Well, maybe by winning the title, you assume the calendar of defenses that the champion has scheduled. So you would have to defend the title on March 3rd. Although if I won this title, I'd be like, "I didn't agree to that match. That's a separate negotiation."
But they've already built interest in Roderick Strong versus Orange Cassidy.
I don't think they are going to switch the title, but I'm just saying for believability factor.
Yeah.
It's a long wait, and I don't know. Strong has not jumped out at me since the formation of this group, but he has a direction for 6.5 weeks.
I think they are definitely trying to make him more serious. No more neck brace, no more shouting of names unless it's specifically sort of warranted, like in this case with Orange Cassidy not paying attention to Roderick Strong. But it still very much feels like he's in a transitional phase right now between that comedic gimmick and what he's trying to be right now in the Kingdom as essentially they're like sort of ace, while Adam Cole is out. Can't really say it's as interesting nor do I find him as over as he was when he was doing the neck brace thing, but the change was necessary. So we'll see in these weeks what they can do. Also, the Kingdom wearing Jay Briscoe armbands.
Yes, and not the only tributes that we would get on the show, this being the 1-year anniversary of his passing. Renee interviews Hangman Page and said that no one cared about the AEW title more than me. I'm going to win it. I'm going to hold it and put my name on it. And he doesn't think about Swerve at all. And Hangman says it doesn't matter because he isn't the champion anyway. Samoa Joe is, and maybe Hook can do it tonight. And that was that. Like, okay.
2 weeks in, what do you think of this mustache?
He's got a real Magnum TA kind of vibe to him now, with the leather jacket, with the hair like kind of slicked into kind of mullet formation.
I think it looks way more fitting on him than it does the Bucks. I'll say that.
Of all the mustaches that have grown out, Page is the front runner, certainly.
it's a
But
good
man,
one.
I mean, the competition is a little
I guess so.
wanting, I would say.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
Mark Briscoe then walks out, and they shoot the Briscoe family that is sitting in the front row, and he gives this wonderful speech about 1 year ago, his brother passing away, mentioning it was a car crash, and that his nieces were also in the truck, and the oldest one was told that she would never walk again. And then in the line that I will literally never forget, just yells, "However," and then out walk Jay Briscoe's kids. And this was like the most incredible moment I have seen on a pro wrestling show. This was just so amazing. It was it was by far for me like the highlight of the show. This is like one of the highlights of the year for any wrestling programming. I just thought this was so amazingly well done. And then they played the Jay Briscoe tribute video that they had done previously. It was just a wonderful moment to commemorate this individual's passing. I thought this was just so heartwarming.
Jaylee and Gracie, who are the two daughters involved in the accident, and their son Gannon came out here. Absolutely. I mean, this was at the moment of the show that really transcended any sort of fiction, right? This is real life. And the moment Mark Briscoe is somebody who can't help but speak from the heart, and especially about something like this. You know, the moment he mentioned his Jay Briscoe's daughters in the car, everybody in the arena quieted. And then when they came out, I mean, you saw the tears on the family's face, you know, sitting ringside, and just to imagine like their emotions, you know, watching something like this. I can't imagine. So it was really nice that they made the time for this moment as well as the video. And man, like just to be able to like maybe even talk about Jay Briscoe like now, it's really heartwarming to know that this man went from essentially being banned from being on television within this company to now having a dedicated segment on national television celebrating his life. Like this video is now how the world will remember Jay Briscoe.
Which remember, Way, that Wednesday after his passing, like they had to sneak in like the comment at the like they had to like tiptoe around it. Like that was to the extent he was just absolutely like persona non grata when it came to a WBD property. I mean, it's awful in hindsight, but like, and then they got to do the proper tribute the next week. But that first Wednesday, it was like Excalibur just having to get like a line in at the end of the show to kind of like acknowledge this, that everyone was tuning in thinking this was going to be this big giant tribute for the man.
Yeah. But now, you know, like, I mean, we are all left with the sort of memory of him as not just a great wrestler, but a great family man that a lot of people seem to love.
Yeah. And I mean, I like as well, just the way the circumstances were that you had Ian Riccaboni on commentary, who, I mean, as close to the Briscoes as anyone in the wrestling business as well, just kind of added to it as well. So this was just a wonderful moment of just like completely separate from pro wrestling programming. From there, we go to Renee's sit down with Nicholas and Matthew Jackson, the Bucks. They are now the EVPs officially on screen, and it's time for them, they explain, to take these jobs more seriously. Renee goes to mention the rumors, and Matt denies all the rumors that are out there about them and asks about what if you had rumors that were breaking down your life's work and losing your legacy and friendships, all in the name of sacrificing to make sure there was a healthy alternative wrestling company. Did you get your paycheck this week, Renee? You're welcome. Matt says, back at the beginning, which you weren't here for, Renee, we used to say something called change the world. And that was about out with the old, in with the new. And somewhere along the way, we lost our way. The culture here shifted. Toxicity entered the locker room, and it just became different. And we started to lean on yesterday's cancerous superstars. And Sting is none of those things. Sting's a model employee. He's one of the greatest of all time. Wonderful man. But he represents the last of that dying breed. And if we're the ones who have to say goodbye to Sting, well, we'll do it, because we would never ask anyone else to do something that we wouldn't do ourselves. And as EVPs, we can pull some strings to try and get that match at Revolution. Now we've got to go. We have a meeting to get to. This is a very bizarre roundabout way to get to. Like, we want to get rid of the cancer in this locker room. Sting's wonderful, but we got to get rid of him first. So that is our direction. And more important is that they are now teasing different matches for Sting, and it is not solidified yet, at least on programming, of the Young Bucks, because later we would get a video of these guys wanting to go for the tag titles on top of it, Sting and Darby.
Right, but the retirement, I think it seems pretty safe that it'll be the Bucks.
Well, we came out of this video and the question was, who will be the opponents for Revolution? It's not like they just stated it as fact. Like, that may in fact be where we get to. But they were at least like putting this video out of at least Sting and Darby going for these tag titles at some point.
Could they not go for the titles and possibly defend them at Revolution? Whatever. There are a lot of directions, but I would say they're pushing the Bucks versus Sting and Darby pretty hard by this point.
I think that's the match. Yeah. I guess the question is, like, do you put the tag titles up there? Which I don't know if this match really needs them, but they could throw it out there with the idea that Sting gets to retire as a tag champion.
Yeah, maybe to justify like a main event spot. Not that it needs justification. Yeah, this segment, the first time we get to hear Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, I find it really hard to take them seriously. I mean, I
what
don't
are
think
you talking about?
Well, I don't. I'm sure it's the intent, but it comes across like it's over the top BTE comedy to me, and I'm not sure if it's the fit I envisioned for Sting's final match, which I kind of envisioned to be maybe something similar, more similar to like Sean and Flair, a lot more seriousness and I don't know, sentimentality attached to it. But it's still too early to say whether or not they may or may not hit that note. It's just I guess we're starting off from definitely more of like a comedic sort of I don't know, tone, at least with the Bucks. I'm also
is it possible that they could acquire the old Butch character with their new outfits? Like, that's what they remind me of. Like
old Butch. What do you mean?
Like 30s, like mustache twirling, like train jumpers. Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna get that Sting fella. Like this.
See, I can buy the Bucks wanting to re-debut these characters after their hiatus. I guess I just don't know if it's such a good fit with a Sting retirement, which is already enough of a story in and of itself, right? Again, too early to say. They could find a great way to really get there, but it leaves me a little bit sort of doubtful. I also want to maybe address like all the sort of like brawl out or references. What exactly did he mean by sacrificing everything? And like, what exactly were the rumors that he was referring to?
Well, I mean, that could be one of like 10 million rumors that are out there. He wasn't specific. I think that is where you're going to lose some of this, because it was sort of just implied that everyone is following all of this day to day, or like even like I think this could have been like, I got the gist of what the message was, that here are these guys that have been put in these positions that has required them to kind of play this balancing act of like, we are these popular wrestlers, but we're also like office now, and in the middle, like, we get tons of stuff thrown at us, and it's cost us certain like friendships. It's cost us to some that have lost faith in us. Like, I think it could have been better outlined here. But again, when we're going back to all the fallout of the Punk stuff, it's like, fair enough, you don't want to touch any of this, but when there is anything to like squeeze, like wring that last bit of water out of that cloth from for the gain of a program, then we will address we'll address it in this kind of a form and just go with the impression every single person knows what we are talking about here. And I don't know if this is necessarily going to be just too vague, too cryptic for people to latch onto, even if you're aware at a base level of what's gone on the last year and a half. Do you have an emotional attachment to this?
Well, I mean, just speaking for myself, I follow this every day. I follow this probably closer than 99.9% of the world. And I guess I'm still looking for specifically what rumor he is referring to that has maybe, I don't know, that he's had to sacrifice to absorb in order to keep the company alive. There are maybe it's because there were a lot of rumors, but maybe like it's because there were a lot. I just don't even know specifically what's the thing that he's had to like kind of withstand.
He can't say. He can't say because he's got an NDA. You could literally ask him in an interview, what are these rumors you're referring to? And he wouldn't be able to tell you, but we're going to like kick the can around for this storyline now, where you could think of like how many things have been said about the Bucks and what their role is in all of this stuff.
Yeah. Cause I'll say like, at least like from what I like my recollection of everything at this point is that Punk for a lot of people felt like he was the bad guy in all of it. There was definitely a lot of people that saw the Bucks and as the bad guys as well. But even then, like, what exactly?
These guys got torched in the press conference. I mean, they got no kind of ability to defend themselves.
Are those the rumors? Like, are those like? Was he referring to the Punk's comments from way back then? Like the Target management rumors? What are we talking about?
If that's your response to this promo, then this really didn't like land well, because you shouldn't have all these different questions, and that's all that you're left with here. Like
it was also that, and also the disconnect immediately when they started to say, well, Sting is not one of those people that we dislike. They're trying to push like this idea that, hey, now we want to get rid of all the cancers in the locker room, all the they might not want to say it, but like ex-legends, ex-WWE guys, what have you. And that might pose like an interesting campaign towards the Revolution match of Bucks targeting Matt Sydal. You know, like, I don't know, whatever. So now, yeah, whoever, whatever ex-WWE person that there might be. But then to just like disassociate it with Sting right away, it just feels like it's an incongruent sort of like two storylines that they have going on.
I think it's also like, granted, this is one promo, and where they go with it, we will see. But again, it's sort of like we saw this at times with like MJF, this like we're going to lean into real thoughts that people have of the company. And yes, you are presenting it here with these two heels that are saying like this company has changed and not for the better. There's a lot of your fan base that are nodding when they hear this, and that's not the feeling that you should be having. Like, if this were a heel 3 years ago that is giving this line that this company is dying and this company is full of cancerous performers, I think that's like a heel line that your audience would push back on. And today it's like there is a significant amount of the audience that I think does look at that this company has, it has lost some of that spark when you're comparing it to 2 years ago. Like, what has that been? And now you have two characters that are kind of introducing this and painting it as like this company has fallen from where it was at one point. And they're not saying it in an ironic way that the audience is arguing back. It's, I think a lot of your audience might be nodding in agreement with them.
And ultimately, what does any of that have to do with Sting? You know, that's what they have to figure out. They have to somehow, I can see the Bucks having a great idea for this type of character upon their return. But again, is the Sting retirement story the best time to introduce it?
Well, I guess they figure Sting goes down, that starts the pathway.
That fixes Brawl Out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sting's retirement is the
he's
answer
not the
to
host,
Brawl Out.
but he is like he's a symptom of it. Okay. We'll get to the cancer, but we've got to start with Sting first. Okay.
Yes. Got it.
There you have it. Nicholas and Matthew. Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony against Jay White and the Guns for the ROH Six-Man tag team titles. Really loved Ian Riccaboni's line again, right out of WWF 1998, referring to Colton Gunn as arguably one of the best pure athletes in AEW. So there's a crotch chop by Colton, and then he gets pounced by Toa, who was he looked good in this match. There was an air raid crash by Khan. The save gets made, and then Toa runs over into the timekeeper's area. Cage is thrown into the post. Cage is like every week is looking more and more like a mummy with the tape he has all over himself. Like this guy could. I was happy to see this outcome, that maybe this man can just go get Kota Ibushi'd and heal up.
Something tells me he won't be taking that much time off.
Well, Khan blocks the Blade Runner. He gets tripped up by Nana, and this leads to a gut buster and our one near fall here with Khan. So Nana gets in with the belt, but all of a sudden Max Caster appears and rips the title away from Prince Nana as Aubrey's back is turned, which I feel is like a staple of every single match she is in. White then counters Khan's finisher with the Blade Runner, and big pop here for the title switch as the Bang Bang Gang win the trios belt. So they have the ROH Six-Man titles, and the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass have the AEW version. And they're temporarily on the same page as Max Caster aided them here for the win.
They also debuted new theme music. The Bullet Club did.
I like the entrance a lot. Like it's the same like circular like 360 entrance, but it was a cool entrance for them.
It felt like the arrival of a more like sort of I don't know, concerted babyface sort of like push, you know, for the Bullet Club Gold, and it certainly seems like it's going that way. Good match. Crowd I think was loud for almost all of it. You know, Kate kind of mentioned this on Saturday, but like the Gates of Agony have been really great as ROH Six-Man champions, but they were really just placeholders, right? You know, these Six-Man titles are one of the weakest ones in all of the AEW ROH universe, and they're really not meant to be anything but sort of like an added plot device for an AEW storyline, much like the ROH tag team titles have been. Which, I mean, I guess it's their priority first and foremost, but it's also a set of championships that mean absolutely nothing.
Well, what I'm hoping is that this is the temporary alliance that ultimately ends with a unification of these two sets of titles, because you do not need two sets of trios belts. And I'm hoping that this is where this ends. And you could end that at Revolution. Like that's a perfect time frame.
So then what do you call that? Sextuple crown? Sextet crown? What do you call that?
Maybe they'll introduce another set of trios belts before Revolution, and then we can have they can carry out nine belts for the winners.
Crown. Love
the triple. Okay. Adam Cole's with Wardlow in the back and just says Wardlow hasn't even scratched the surface yet. He'll be undefeated and the most dominant champion AEW has ever had, and the title will be property of Undisputed Kingdom. And Wardlow said, boom.
Yeah, I mean, 2-3 weeks in now on this Devil reveal, where are you at with Cole and the Kingdom? What is it? Undisputed Kingdom.
It's just a group. It's they haven't stood out to me anything more than like, you know, Jay White's group had.
They're missing just like that big kind of company shaking impact that I think you would have expected from, you know, the Devil. After its reveal. And again, a lot of it is because Max is out right now. Joe isn't necessarily involved with them. Even Jay White, you know, seems to be busy. Did Jay White end up getting his revenge on this group? Not really, right? Like, didn't they just had some interaction and that was it?
No, I think they addressed it, but we haven't
even Paige
on TV after.
Like Paige was taken out. Then was there how did he sort of address the Undisputed Kingdom?
It's still disputed.
Like nobody cares. These guys reveal their faces as the people that attacked you, and like no one's gonna go after them.
Maybe they don't want to judge someone on his worst moment. You know, I'll tell you this, okay? For all that talk about the rumor of like Adam Cole getting called up from NXT to be a manager on the main roster, and how much that would have been a waste of Adam Cole. Like that's what we're seeing now. It's like Adam Cole is the manager for everyone else because he can't do anything else at the moment, and it's doesn't feel like a top heel in this role. He just feels like a mouthpiece because that's what he's reduced to. But that's what I watched here during this segment. I'm like, here's the manager that can talk for the big guy, and it just feels like a mid-card act at this this segment.
Yeah, and they might have been like, handcuffed due to timing just because they wanted some resolution at World's End, and it meant Cole coming back early, and this was the only role for him. I want to thank people in the chat room. We have Nathan and also what is it, Pete in Texas, who are mentioning that the Acclaimed and Bullet Club Gold are specifically getting together to go after the Kingdom. So that could be probably their next program, or it should be their next program, I suppose, as a tandem.
Why do they need so many of them to go after, what, 3 people? 4 people?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4 plus Adam Cole.
Well, Adam Cole can't do anything that we've established.
They still, you need the numbers.
Okay. Tony Storm comes out for commentary with Luther and Mariah May, and it's Deonna Purrazzo against Anna Jay. And Tony Storm thinks that Ian is Tony Schiavone and says, "You look so much better. We had been worried about you," and starts feeding him macaroons. There's clotheslines by Purrazzo. She hits a side Russian leg sweep, and then a backstabber by Jay for a 2 count. Goes for the Queen Slayer. It's countered to the armbar. Jay gets to the rope and then applies Venus de Milo on Jay's taped up shoulder and submits her in 6:41. And Renee gets into the ring, and Deonna explains that she's known Tony Storm for a long time. We used to be like sisters, but Storm has changed, but so have I. You may have been friends with Deonna Purrazzo, but you've never met the best technical wrestler, the virtuosa. And Storm, while sitting on the shoulders of Luther, calls her an artificially tanned hag and then throws her shoe at Deonna Purrazzo.
Oh, she said a bit more than that, John. She said, what did she say here? I don't want to misquote her. I should sock you right in that box, is what she said.
Okay. Well, there you have it.
Which seemed to perhaps elicit a pretty genuine reaction from both Deonna and also Renee. I thought Tony was really funny on this episode. I was very entertained by her. I thought the match was good too. This seems to this was 8 days. Within 8 days, 3 matches for Anna Jay where I thought she looked impressive, and I hope she somehow gets a spot where she can stay relevant on this show. Because I think she's looked very good over the past week. Deonna is also I think she looked great too, she really did a good job of, I think, emphasizing the idea that she's this technical marvel. Now, I do find it interesting that you essentially have Serena D working the same gimmick, and she's about to return and re-debut. But it's maybe a bit clear that she's going for the TBS championship, whereas Deonna's going for the world. But I'm interested to see if those two ever interact and how they might make the two of them distinct. Tony is just so entertaining, though, that it's going to be hard for anybody to match her in terms of, especially as a babyface, in terms of appeal. I would also suggest maybe it's too early for a title match, don't you think, with Deonna? Wouldn't it be nice to maybe let Deonna get over a little bit more before throwing her into a title match?
Wait, let me remind you of the fact that we have 6.5 weeks until this pay-per-view. You realize how long that is? That is plenty of time to get over, okay? Lots of time.
True.
If it wasn't an ROH belt, I mean, it would just be like hand to glove of Tony Storm winning this ROH women's television title. I mean, it just fits her so well. But I don't want to see her holding a ROH title. I don't quite understand why we're adding even more belts at the ROH level, but they are. Rampage on Friday has Chris Jericho and Matt Sydal, Chris Statlander and Queen Aminata, Anthony Henry against Penta, and Jeff Hardy against Darby Allin, which the last time they had a match was one of the most frightening displays I've seen on AEW programming. So God knows what they have planned. Probably filming it right now.
I hope for everybody's safety.
And then Collision on Saturday, they have announced Bryan Danielson and Claudio against Eddie Kingston and Ortiz, Buddy Matthews against Daniel Garcia, and the return of Jon Moxley. He's back from San Jose.
All right.
Private Party, Top Flight. The 4 faced off in the center. They bumped fists. Quen started going for Dante's ankle, and they were talking about, wow, they're not doing any high flying. This is a grounded affair. And Cassidy then introduced some flying with a springboard cutter to Darius on the apron. They go through the picture-in-picture. Darius gets the tag, makes the comeback, and then Quen hits a 450 onto Dante, only gets a 2 count. And then they hit the gin and juice to Dante, but Darius is in to break it up. And then Quen delivers an O'Connor roll and leans back, grabbing the rope for leverage to pin Darius. and they replayed the ending, and Private Party squeaking by here with the assistance of the rope.
I found audience response to this maybe a bit lower than I expected, and maybe that was mainly due to the location of the match this deep into the show, but I thought it was a really good spot fest. These two teams are sort of like mirror images of one another, and I thought the result was really fantastic. Quen looked really good here coming back, and Darius hit this like amazing Pele kick. So like, you know, yeah, both of them I thought were really impressive. And Private Party basically turning heel here, and I'm happy to see at least some direction for them, you know, after what feels like years of stagnation.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see where they go here with these teams. I thought it was like nice match. It felt like some of the flow didn't quite like gel at times for me. It just sort of seemed as though we were going from like one sequence to the next. But overall, there was some impressive stuff here, and the focus was on Mark Quen. They seem to be isolating him. Then it was the Sting and Darby vignette where they are 26-0 as partners. But the most important part of the story is the end. And they are going to end their story as tag team champions. And they showed shots of Ricky Starks and Big Bill. And it's just left with the question of who they are going to face. So there's several ways you could go here. You could have Sting and Darby challenge and win the belts ahead of time. Or you could have the Bucks win the tag title sometime before Revolution on top of it. I can understand wanting to make this match as big as possible and throwing championships in there. I think Starks and Big Bill are just tremendous as the tag champions. It doesn't feel like I would want them to drop the belts. I don't know if they necessarily fit into this picture either, but if it's to the benefit that they feel that this match, it adds a layer to have Sting retiring as a champion, then I can understand that is the bigger, you know, it's the focus of the pay-per-view.
You can draw a big TV rating with, you know, Starks and Big Bill defending the titles against Sting and Darby. They don't have to win them, you know, like that. It could be a loss. That might.
I think they should go into that last match undefeated, and that's the idea.
Yeah,
Will his one loss be the retirement match?
Mm-hmm.
I would not beat Sting before a Revolution.
Sure. But I mean, holding them, you know, would allow them to get another main event on TV, perhaps, you know, defending the championships before finally defending them against the Bucks. I don't dislike
Bucks
it
with this EVP gimmick like that. They could just stonewall them from getting the title shot, and they insert themselves into the match.
I would hate that so much, man. I would hate to see like this be some sort of like hybrid GM, you know, like gimmick where they book themselves into like dominant. It's just that's a bit too sports entertainment for me for my AEW preferences. But you're right, they do have a lot of pull.
Get ready. This could be the backdrop for our next 6 months. Main event, commercial free, Samoa Joe and Hook. And Hook charges at him right away and drops Hook with an elbow and just starts unloading on him in the corner. Hook
we should mention all the Suicide Squad sort of branding all throughout the show on the ring apron and everything.
Yeah, they're not sponsoring us, so I don't feel the need to have
I'm sorry.
Call attention to it. But hey, they can call up way. But yes, they gave you this 14-minute match commercial free. So Hook is fighting from underneath, hits a sliding lariat and then a right hand off the apron, and Joe goes down. And then Joe takes this guy and he spins him around for this Uranagi, and he drops him on the edge of this desk. And dude, his head broke this table. This was one of the nastiest Uranagi spots I have ever seen, and this looked utterly painful. And then
like,
Joe
think the Randy Orton sort of belly to back suplex, except like on the corner of the table and way harder.
And broke the table with it too,
and right in front of a man's father too.
Dude, Taz was so great here. Joe hits him with the apron bomb, and then Ian is just like, Taz, this is gonna be hard to watch. And Taz is like off for a minute, and he's just standing there. Dude, he was so great. He was just like, he has found the balance that is very, very tricky, as we have seen when it comes to like whether it's a husband-wife combo or some kind of connection that you have. God knows Shane McMahon calling his dad's stuff in 1998. Dreadful. But Taz, I mean, he's always like, he calls Hook like another wrestler, but never to the point that he's not his father at the same time. But it's like he's like coach dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's allowing his child to get hurt as a way for, well, I mean, I guess because he considers him, his own man at this point. I thought he did a good job of straddling that line, not getting too emotionally involved.
So he says that I hope he stays down, but I know he won't. And Hook breaks the count to get in, and Joe hits him with a power slam, a DVD. Hook kicks out. Then he hits him with the muscle buster. Everyone is just, it's over. It's done. Suicide Squad paid for too much time because we're going to be off the air with 5 minutes to go. And Hook kicks out at 1 from the muscle buster. Taz is stunned, and Hook fires back with clotheslines, and then the big spot, T-bone suplexes Samoa Joe. Ian Riccaboni is losing it. And then he goes for the red rum. Joe gets the arm in to block and turns it into the coquina clutch. And the arm is raised 3 times and goes down. Can't say I'm a fan of the 3 arms. I feel it's so.
What do you mean?
To me, it's just such a throwback to, like, we've forever, it's just been guys out. It's the match is over. It's waved off. But like the 3 arms to me, it's
how do you know a guy's out if you don't use the 3 arms?
Because the announcers are yelling, the guy's out. He's gone to sleep.
Well, you got to double check, okay? Like this is an MMA, all right?
Check.
Yeah. Well, you got to give the person a chance.
Well, the 3 arms go down. I think this is going to be specific for the coquina clutch, is the 3 arms that they are going to do with Joe. And that was it. I thought that they listen, you can see Hook that he has his, his strengths, and he has his, progressions that he still has to make. But man, did they book this one for this audience to get behind Hook, to make him like a believable challenger by the end. I thought the commentary was very strong. And by the end of this, it was like this idea that this guy went toe to toe with the champion and kept fighting and got this guy's like begrudging respect by the end of it. Like, this was not a cakewalk for Samoa Joe.
Yeah, totally. I thought this match was spectacular, and let's remember, like, Hook is somebody who hasn't even had 50 matches yet in his entire career. The man debuted in December of 2021. So like 2 years in, to be able to like handle not just I think a main event role like this, but a type of character like this, I think is very impressive. They definitely achieved what they wanted by having him like impress and defeat. I thought Joe looked like the most vicious I've seen him look in a very long time against Hook. And it almost felt like they had some sort of unspoken agreement where it was just like, Joe, you can hit me as hard as you want. And this man took full advantage, because it was like, it felt like, man, if he, like, Hook felt like Spike Dudley at times in there, just because of the size difference. And like, Joe just came across so powerful, whipping this man either on the table or just with every single one of his moves. So Joe looked completely devastating. I'll tell you, I didn't love like the kick out at 1 of the muscle buster. Like, I think a kick out of the muscle buster alone would have been significant enough. But like, I do feel
I
like
agreed with you. Yeah.
Joe's finisher, like the champion's finisher, I kind of feel should have been protected a bit more. Like, he essentially kind of kicked out of it twice, because he delivered it to him after the match, and Hook just kind of walked up out of it. To me, that was a bit too much, but it's hard to complain. This is a very entertaining, main event.
Yeah. After the match, Hook asks, "Is that all you've got?" So Joe gives him another muscle buster, and Hook again gets up to his feet. So Joe returns, when all of a sudden Hangman Page's music plays. He runs down, Joe exits, and Joe goes up the ramp. Swerve is now out with Prince Nana eyeing Joe, and Joe goes to the back. Page tends to Hook, and then the crowd is chanting for Swerve as Hook's music plays to end the show, and Taz proclaiming that one day he will be a world champion. I thought they did just a great job with Hook in these like final 15 minutes.
Follow-up is so important for Hook coming off of this. They have to kind of, talk about the legend of this match and how impressive Hook was, and they need a juicy program for him right away after this. He can't take a few weeks off and just kind of fall back into the background. They need to capitalize on this.
Maybe next week he goes to like 8 Mile and does a battle rap to get back into
what are they in Detroit?
I don't know. They just find Action Bronson.
What? Just why?
I watched 8 Mile recently, and he takes a big beating, but then he has to get back up and come back.
Got it. All right.
That's it. What'd you think of Dynamite?
entertaining show. I felt, you know, like good wrestling.
I like the main event and the TNT title match a lot. Cassidy and Trent against Penta and Komander was a very good match.
Mark Briscoe segment was an emotional
Oh,
high.
that was
on the show.
incredible. Like that was just incredible.
Yeah,
Like,
iffy on the
there
direction.
wasn't like a bad match on the show, but I would say like the bookended matches were I thought the top ones.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about, like, you know, this Bucks direction with for a Sting match, but I have no doubt that the match itself is going to be great and will be heavily anticipated by the time we get there. So yeah.
All right, there you go. That was tonight's edition of Dynamite. We'll go to some forum questions, and if you got any super chats, now is the time to send them in.
Forum.postwrestling.com, John. What do we got?
Andrew starts us off. Joe and Hook delivered. One criticism AEW has had with Hook was he seemed to be staying in place. All his matches were the same, and there hadn't seemed to be any upward mobility. Tonight changed that, and I think the fact that I was so used to Hook being more dominant made Joe throwing him around even better. In the end, it made Joe even scarier. AEW does seem more focused with its current roster and are avoiding mistakes of the past with the frequent hires when people would get released. Another highlight was the Bucks, and I love the direction they're going in. It sucks for Big Bill and Ricky Starks, but I feel Sting and Darby should take the belts off of them and maybe lose them to the Bucks at Revolution. But then again, I wanted Jericho off TV, so we can't always get what we want. Lastly, the main high point was the Mark Briscoe segment, and it's great to see Jay's children are doing a lot better 1 year out.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's go up next to Jordan from the Bronx, who says Mark Briscoe's segment was easily the best thing on the show. He's a much stronger man than I am to be able to speak on the anniversary of his brother's passing in front of a crowd of thousands on national TV. Godspeed to Jay's children and the entire Pugh family. What's the deal with mustaches now? Roderick Strong looks like Ned Flanders. Hangman is giving me Magnum TA vibes.
See?
And the Bucks look like Endeavor Vince McMahon.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's subtly a look that they're going for.
Is TK they should both dye their hair black, maybe. Is TK going to hire Eli Cottonwood at some point? Question: what are your thoughts on consolidating some of the titles? The FTW belt and the Pure title are each one wrestler divisions and don't see much defenses. Maybe the Acclaimed and BCG are heading towards unifying the trios belts. The C2 tournament was great. However, the Continental Crown title seems to be yet another belt without anything defining it. Well, there's 3 of them. So that's what defines it.
Yeah. I hope that's where they go with the trios belts. I think that makes sense where they're going. Anything beyond that.
Don't you get the impression though that they're wanting to populate ROH with more championships just to kind of, I don't know, justify like its own.
Well, they're adding the women's television title. Yeah. I don't know how much it necessarily matters in the whole grand scheme of things, but you got a lot of Battle of the Belts to fill, so you can't run out of belts and run a show called Battle of the Belts, can you?
Yeah. There's always like a bit of a cheap pop whenever like somebody wins a championship, even if it's as, I don't know, insignificant as the ROH Six-Man tag titles. So I guess you ask, like, is the company better off with these extra titles versus not having them? Like you said, John, I don't think it hurts them that much, but like, I don't know. I think WWE has done a really great job of like seemingly consolidating most of their championships. They do have 2 brands, so that helps a lot. And they don't intertwine whatsoever, or at least not as much as they used to. Anyway,
let's go up next to Michael. Top to bottom, entertaining show. Dynamite was booked well, and it kept my eyes on the screen with those near falls in the opener and the main event, along with another solid technical showcase for Deonna Purrazzo, followed by a nice back and forth with Toni Storm, who I think has gotten better with speaking in that timeless character. I noticed a lot more of a change in production tonight, and I'm enjoying it thus far. Just thought I'd point that out as it felt noticeably different and fresh. I'm wondering if Wai noticed anything different from his trained eye. I also like this new gimmick for the Young Bucks, and I'm looking forward to their promos hitting that smart mark base and creating some much-needed buzz. I liked how the Hook Joe match was laid out, and that Hook wasn't immediately forgotten when Hangman and Swerve came out post-match. I hope Tony Khan keeps Hook as a dark horse in the mix, as it's time to keep some of these young talents in the deep end. A healthy dose of roster definitely seems to be getting TV time, and that's great for development and recognition. Let's keep the momentum going. Dem boys forever.
Was he asking about like the Tony Storm's promos or the presentation?
I think more like
change in production
of the show. If you noticed anything,
I maybe not as much to me, just because like it seems like the evolution has just kind of been progressing for weeks now. We had like a video package, you know, to boost the main event or to open the show, and I thought that was good. Like I think production overall is is at a better place right now with AEW. Like, do you, John? Like, you know, I don't feel like it's the crazy pace that we used to complain about. I feel like they're doing enough like pre-production for certain re-debuts, enough promotion of upcoming matches. Like, I think it's a pretty healthy balance. What do you think?
They've also kind of gotten away from the big Excalibur big sell of the next show as well. Like now it's kind of limited to kind of the lower thirds during the main event, where it's a lot more subtle than before, than doing the big hard push for any of whatever the next broadcast is.
Right. Probably. Well, and it's not like they don't promote the matches ahead of time. They're just doing it in a lower third. So
yeah,
that's good. All right, let's go to Tristan, who says, longtime fan, first time poster on here. Welcome, Tristan. He says, just on the Sean Strickland front, since you all covered it in your news earlier, he said he didn't have a problem with it, but clearly he does. The issue here, though, isn't Strickland, it's the UFC. This isn't the first fighter to use his platform to spread hate speech with little to no accountability. The only thing Strickland said that was remotely correct was the comment about transgender identities being medically classified as a mental illness in recent history. That and other queer identities were once classified this way. Now they are not, and it's because we know better culturally. The other comments Strickland had to share are just not accurate. It's hate speech, and the UFC allows hate speech to go unchecked. It's why I no longer watch the UFC or follow MMA. As a queer person, I'm not welcome to even be a fan of the sport. With the fighters there now, I don't think talent absolves you of any of this. Side note, I lead a local LGBTQIA2+ charity, P-Flag York region. If you think there's ever a need to better educate the MMA/pro wrestling fan base about these homophobic and transphobic comments like this, I am all game to support. We're looking to connect with the general public and combat the statements of disinformation out there of late, like Strickland's comments. Well, thank you very much for that offer and your thoughts, Tristan.
Yeah, we appreciate that very much so, and I'm sure that you echo a lot of people's feelings about MMA of just going so far as to feel like you don't feel wanted at some of these events, and if it's more indicative of the culture that has surrounded it. I mean, like, how would you feel comfortable going to one of these shows if this is not only something that the UFC doesn't decree, but like there's a portion of the audience that welcomes this kind of thing. I totally see how it has turned a lot of people off. But that seems to be like, again, it is one where if all things are on the table, I would not think for a second that the UFC would be addressing this unless it came pressure from an entity that did not want such. And again, this is not as though this is some just random, like, this is a pretty prominent fighter that you are promoting all week long for your pay-per-view as well. Like, this is one that, I mean, shouldn't be, swept under the rug regardless, or just lost in the news cycle. Like, this is someone that commands attention, and I'm just curious if this kind of breaks outside of an MMA story, that it just seems as though it's still the carnival. It's like this kind of stuff happens in MMA. You know what I mean? The Gus Johnson line.
Yeah,
and this would never be tolerated elsewhere, not just by leagues, but by consumers, by sponsors. Like, most companies, broadcasters would not want to be attached to this kind of thing. And by not speaking out on it, you get the reaction from Tristan here that by UFC not condemning this, it's kind of like you're stating, like, yeah, we're fine with this.
I want to let's give credit to Alexander K. Lee, the journalist who like fearlessly asked those questions under
and didn't relent either in the face of like someone getting very adversarial. And I'm glad you brought that up, because at the end of the day, Sean Strickland putting these comments out there, the very least is you have to answer for those comments when given the forum, such as you were here in front of the media. You get to sit up there and, you know what? You can say no comment. You cannot answer our questions, but we have every right to ask you whatever we want. And when you put that out in the public, you better then stick by your words. Don't cower when suddenly it is called upon you to answer for these statements that you've made. And just try and tangle it around like this is somehow some gotcha headline that is being done for the purposes of clicks. Like, get out of here with that. It's like, stand by your statement and defend what you have stated publicly prior when someone calls you on it, at the very least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that is all we have to say for tonight's edition of Rewind-A-Dynamite. I'm more awake now than I was at the start of the show.
No, talking tends to do that. So maybe you should ask me how we should ask each other how we're doing at the end of these shows.
Well, we will see how we are arrested for tomorrow's edition of Talk, as we will be up here, postwrestlingcafe.com, and we will be chatting about whatever comes to mind. So these are always fun shows where we go into things about the site, past, present, future, all things in between.
Also, for those of you on the free feed, we have an edition of Rewind-A-Way for all of you. Our recent review of The Ultimate Fighter Season 1, which John and I did, and we both enjoyed the show so much, and our audience seemed to as well, that we decided that we are going to release that show on the free feed tomorrow as well. So those of you who might not normally subscribe to the Post Wrestling Cafe can get a sample of Rewind-A-Way, which is our retro wrestling and combat sports review podcast that is up to, I think, edition 147 right now. So those of you on the free feed will be able to get that tomorrow as well.
All right, that is it for us. We'll chat with you on Thursday, and then Friday night, Wai is back with Neal Flanagan for Rewind-A-SmackDown. Goodbye, good night. Thank you for tuning in to Rewind-A-Dynamite.